can have Evie start through the slides. Yay! Katuwa. Medyo dark yung video ni Mark. Nakita mo yan,
Yes.
Mark. Medyo dark daw yung video mo.
I think it's the
Lighting.
sa likod.
You're against the light.
Yeah.
Don't show them our house. It's very dirty. Ayan. That's better. That's better.
Wait.
Close it a bit pa. Thank you for that feedback, Philippine Society for Development.
Sige, yan.
Okay.
Alright,
so
sobrang maliwanag.
Are we live na, Nat?
About 30 seconds, sir.
30 seconds before we go live. O sige, 30 seconds. Galaw,
John,
Evie.
but why can't
Yes.
I see a chat tab on my menu tab? I can only see the Q&A tab. Where's the chat?
You try to tap the screen. Sometimes it's there. When you tap the screen, sometimes it appears either above or below.
No, mine is iPad, so everything is up there at the top of the screen.
All right.
The chat is actually in the more.
In the more.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Okay, so we're almost siguro mga 15 seconds away from live. So galaw-galaw at galaw-galaw at ready tayo so that Evie can start na. So we have 7 minutes to go before actual 2 o'clock session. Ay, Evie, lumiliit na yung ating intro time, ha? Kaya,
yes.
Diba, nakakatuwa. Tingnan mo, alam niyo kung nakita niyo yung mga audience kanina, we have someone calling in from Laos. We have someone from Thailand. Yes.
Really? So we have to speak English?
General
all
Santos. Yeah, can you please? We want to be inclusive for people, so can you please speak in English so that we can accommodate as many people as we can? Okay. Sige, may difficulty lang daw dun sa Facebook Live, pero kamustahin muna natin yung mga tao before I endorse Evie, no? I'm at first-time attendee. Ayan, first-time attendee. Si Rockwell Concepcion. Hello. Romy Carandang from Santa Rosa, Laguna. Mary Ann Zacarias from Taytay. Mabuhay kayo dyan. Sonia from DOJ. Hello, DOJ. OGCC. Hindi ko po alam kung anong ibig sabihin nun, pero mabuhay po kayo.
Government-owned corporation.
Ayun ba yun?
Okay. Government-owned and controlled corporation.
Ayan, tingnan mo. Ito si Teacher A yung sinasabi ko. Sending greetings from Savanaket, Laos. O, diba?
Really?
Alright, so I can see it now. We're live in Facebook. Evie, you can take it away. Just tell me if I should go next na dun sa slides. So we have 5 minutes to do the briefing before you can endorse them.
Okay. 5 minutes?
Yes, you can do this.
No, okay, good afternoon, everyone, all viewers. Please help me out again on this because this is my first time. Just like how John did it the first time. So he's now a very seasoned online speaker and moderator. Okay, so I just want to share the feeling that I have right now. Being online live this afternoon, moderating for the first time. So for you out there, I know there are millennials there, so I'm 2 layers up your generation, but here I am facing up to the challenge because this is now the new learning platform that we are faced, and it's inevitable, and we have to really push our self to acquire those skills, new set skills, moving forward to the new and better normal. Okay, so I hope everybody could step up to the plate as well, to the challenge of this, what COVID-19 gave us beneficially. Okay, that's the way I see it. All right, so yes, let's start. Let's start with the session this afternoon. Okay, but before I introduce to you our facilitator, let me just give you a brief background of why we're here with you. You're watching us on a daily basis for 3 weeks now. Let me just see the slides. We're doing this. We have a series of learning from home and a lot of projects ahead of us because PSTD launched the Upland Hope. Upland Hope is hold on, people enablers. This is PSTD's way of, I cannot see the slides, but I will just keep on talking here. John, the slides.
Wait. All right.
Okay, that's Upland Hope.
Can you see na?
For
Can you
those
see
who
na?
have, yes, I can see it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, PSTD launched the Upland Hope. It is a PSTD program that we launched, headed by a task force composed of heads of our committees also. But Upland Hope aims to provide our community of learners support in terms of continuous learning and new solutions on how we can still provide our services to you during this time of pandemic. This is, of course, everybody was surprised to be in this position, but we have to move on. And true to our mission of learning, growing, and transforming, we are really transforming in a way that we are using new ways of bringing to you our services. And that's how PSTD wants to help the community of learners, learning and development community right now. But along the way, and doing this, we also aim to sustain how we can also provide things for you in a more sustainable way. And this is also providing programs that would sustain us as an institution, though we're nonprofit organization. We aim also to gain more from your help in terms of attending our paid courses. And we will be doing so and providing you with this one as we move on to the next few weeks after this month. Okay, we have first of the projects or programs that we have for Upland Hope is the Learn from Home series. And you have been with us, some of you first timers. We've been doing this for the past 3 weeks. We're on our 3rd week now. And we have several series of free webinars for you for since last week. And hey, these are free live webinars, and these are just numbers that we want to show you because we're very happy to share with you that we have done 10 classes of from thought leaders of several organizations. We have, and amazingly, this is the first time that PSTD has amassed this kind of attendance and attendees from you guys. 3,221 via Zoom and more than 21,000 from our FB Live. Okay, so that's really a feat, and we're still very glad, and we aim to see more of you in the succeeding days. The sessions are delivered by our Asia Pacific speakers. Okay, next we also these were the sessions that we have done since last week, and this week we are on our 3rd theme, which is to how to optimize Google Tools. And yesterday, if you were here, that was really an amazing session with Shai. Today, you again encounter a very young and dynamic facilitator. And tomorrow, don't fail to watch another session that we have on how to use Lean method. Moving on. Okay. Next week, starting May, we will have these several sessions. Please feel free to learn more about them in our FB page or on our website. Okay, we are so fortunate and lucky to have a privilege to have panelists and speakers who volunteered their services to share with you their experiences and their expertise. And these are coming from all this, what you can see from your screen, from these credible and highly prestigious institutions. Well, I'd like to mention AITD, Australia Institute. Well, because of all these accomplishments so far, we were featured in Fieldstar Global. So those are the highlighted ones. If you want, this was also posted in our website and our FB page. So feel free to read on. And the second project that we have launched is the TikTok kamustahan. So all of you millennials and Gen Zs can actually relate to the title, but this is a very witty and clever title that we had. It's really just a kamustahan for those who really want to talk for 10 to 15 minutes. So we have volunteers of 17 TikTok buddies, including myself, and 10 TikTokers. These are the people who really wanted to have just a talk with us. Okay, and we would also have, and we started this off as a pilot last Friday, and we will have another one we're launching now as a title on Friday, Chillax with PSTD. Diba, nice yung mga, very trendy ang aming mga titles. Chillax would actually be a summary of the week that was. So feel free to join us on Friday. And we have facilitators like our mentor M here, Maribel, and Cecil Terrible. Of course, headed by our President John. Okay, on Thursday, I would like to invite you for our first ET panel, and that's the 5 things to focus on amidst crisis. But this is actually with a fee of 500 pesos to help our cause. But on another part of the slide, you'll see that there's a freebie that goes on along with attending this program. The organization that would have the biggest number of attendees that they will register will get a free 5 leadership assessment from DDI. And do you know how much this costs? It costs 17,500 pesos. So isn't that a very big deal in just attending for 500 pesos, right? Okay, so we'll see you there on Thursday. Okay, and next, okay, we're actually ready to start the session. Let me just give you some reminders on how we will proceed with this. We will all put you on mute so that we can clearly manage the flow of the information and to avoid other unnecessary noises. We will have questions. So if you do have questions, please use the Q&A tab. If you want to give your comments, say hello, or other inputs that you would like to share with us, click on the chat tab. Okay, for those who are on Zoom and logged in as participants, you will be getting certificates on 2 conditions: that you have stayed at least 40 minutes and you have logged in as a registered or a participant. Okay, so I will now introduce to you, I don't want to get much more of his time. I would like to introduce to you our facilitator for this afternoon. Oh, sorry. Narinig niyo ba yung aking timer? Okay. Our facilitator for this afternoon previously worked for Miracle Energy Incorporated, also with Rising Tide, and ABM Global Solutions, all in an HR leadership capacity. And currently, he is the employee experience manager of Globe Telecom. Okay, he's young and very impressionable, Mr. Mark Dimaisip. And he will talk, give us some of his insights and experiences on managing employee engagement during this pandemic. So let me introduce to you Mr. Mark Dimaisip.
Thank you, Evie.
You're welcome.
I'll be discussing about employee engagement during COVID-19, and I'll be sharing my experience as the employee experience manager of Globe. But I want to say that this is not the end and be all measurement of engagement. So we're not claiming that this is the only way to do it, or this is the most effective way to do it. But what I want to do is to share some stories and insights. How we're able to quickly adapt to the changing situations, to the lockdown, to the COVID-19 pandemic, etc. So I'll be sharing with you guys my screen. And I would like for you to use your mobile phones because we'll have interactive activities in a bit. If you could open your browser in your phones, go to menti.com. We will have some activities later where I'll be asking you guys to share your inputs. So it could give us sort of an idea of the demographics of the audience that we're talking with. So, but before I go to the activity, I want to move to my first point. I have 3 points for today. How do we survive the pandemic, and how do we win the pandemic through employee engagement? And those are three simple things. We use empathy, we empathize. Second is we digitalize whatever our culture is. We bring it online. And the third is we positivize. So we find light no matter how dark the situation is. So three things: empathize, digitalize, and positivize. So I'll um, go to the first slide, which is empathize. And before I discuss what we mean by empathize and how important empathy is and how an organization can be empathetic, I want you to visit menti.com. Please log in to www.menti.com. And there's a code there. It's there. It's 422914. So if you could go there, there's a question that I've laid out for you guys. So showing it to you. So I'll be logging. You just have to type menti.com, and I have questions later as the talk progresses. We'll go back to the Mentimeter so we can capture what the audience is undergoing through. So I'll respond to the Mentimeter. And I hope you guys respond too. I'll be checking the results and I'll give you 30 seconds to go to finish it. I'll stop sharing muna and move to the Mentimeter page. So yeah, so this is the question that we post. Can you see my screen? So how open is the organization to feedback? So we've asked you guys to provide your feedback, and there's 88 responses out of, I think there's 400 people here. There's 429 people watching. So for the people who are watching, please go to menti.com. It's there on your screen, www.menti.com. You can use your desktop, you can use your cell phone. And then log in using the code 422914. So go to menti.com and use the code 422914. So for now, we have almost 150 responses. I read the scores. My organization encourages employees to speak up. This is in a rating scale of 1 to 5. 4.1 would agree that their organization encourages employees to speak up. Number 2, my organization actively listens to employee feedback. That's 3.9 out of 5. I think that's still a good number because it's still near strongly agree. And my organization answers every question raised by employees. It's 3.7. So I think the audience that we have now has a pretty good organizational empathy in terms of capturing employee feedback and responding to employee feedback. So I hope everyone could answer. We'll go back to this later. I hope everyone could answer, but I'll proceed to my slide where I would like to discuss empathy. One of the biggest accomplishments of Globe when the pandemic started, and when the ECQ started, is we're able to launch DudeBot. And that particular bot sends health check-in to all employees, and every employee could respond through text if they are well or unwell, if they have symptoms, if they don't have symptoms, if they feel sad, etc. That particular bot also has links to information on COVID-19, workplace policies. It has tips that you could pull for hygiene, home care, grocery, safety, etc. It has well-being content. So whenever we have webinars, we use that chatbot to forward invitations and calendars to events, such as mental health talks or, for example, physical wellness activities. We do health check-ins there's doctor consultations links. And whenever our critical skeletal force, this is the 800 to 900 employees who are still working outside and not on full work from home, they also use DudeBot to request for refills of their PPEs. So when they run out of masks or alcohol gels, they could use the bot. We also use this to request for COEs, and whenever there's a need for transportation and someone is stranded, they could also use DudeBot. They could also use it to request for accommodation for employees who are living in the provinces and cannot go home. So they need accommodations in the city. But this particular platform, DudeBot, this particular achievement, the technology played a part, but it was the culture of empathy that led to this. So I want to do a quick story of how this came about. So when the pandemic started, it was all hands on deck. We're able to gather all the support teams, the IT team, safety team, admin team, comms team, HR team, and we're able to quickly allocate what's your role in this kind of setup. Who monitors the number of alcohol gels or masks that we have? Who receives the inquiries from the employees? Who makes sure that there are tools for employees when they go to full work from home mode? And it would not have been possible if not for the 5 departments coming together. So as our chief HRO would say, we are in a state of war with a virus. And the only way to win a war is to make sure that we end up alive and we end up healthy, as people are our priority. So we have to make sure that risks are minimized. That's why we're quickly able to transition to work from home. And everyone who was out there were given proper PPEs. And it didn't end with creating a core group that addresses the COVID-19 response. It continued with a good open communications program. So we quickly created a help desk for COVID-19. And unlike any other help desk, this help desk, all the inquiries here are routed through managers and directors. Our head of organizational risk is responding to it. Our head of employee experience is responding to it. All our managers in my team, our comms manager, our programs manager, I'm the employee experience manager, we respond to all that 900 emails. We know how difficult and confusing this time is, and we want to make sure that we provide the correct answer. So for 1 week before the ECQ, we're all in one room, packed in one room, where we use like our war room. And that's where we ticket all the help desk inquiries. And Globe understood how critical the time is, that Globe has assigned a lot of senior headcount to manage that particular situation. From that, we're able to get employee pulse. We released 120 questions through FAQs. And we didn't stop at silly questions. So questions like, will Globe sponsor for my health if I get infected by COVID? If I get infected at work and I infect my family, will Globe take care of it? How do I know if I have COVID-19? And these are very serious questions that we need to answer. And we didn't shy away, even from silly questions like, so now we're on work from home, will Globe sponsor my electricity? Other questions like, I don't know how to disinfect my house. Can Globe send a cleaning crew and disinfect my house for me? And these questions may be considered silly, but it's important that we answer them because that's where true empathy happens. So when we rolled out a survey, 3,819 employees responded in 2 days. That's out of 8,000 employees answering a 40 question survey on full work from home. We opened kamustahan sessions with our senior leaders, 309 attendees from 4 sessions. These are all the senior leaders in Globe, your head of your commercial, your head of your technology, your head of your sales, your head of your HR, etc. All of them in one kamustahan session. because we wanted to give our critical skeletal force access to them and for them to ask questions in a Zoom setting. We asked our CEO to become a vlogger, and since the lockdown, he has released total of 5 videos discussing the state of the organization, to answering questions both serious and silly, and making sure that the employees feel secure about their future. And when we activated Dude, we have total of 6,700 employees trusting the bot and checking in daily because they understand why it is important that Globe accounts for who are well and who are unwell. When we did our workplace e-jam, this is our first town hall during the lockdown. And in this particular town hall, normally there's around 400 employees in the building attending the live event. And there's probably 2,000 to 3,000 views online. And for the first time, we're able to shoot up to 6,000 views. The full work from home setup and the overpowering empathy that Globe has for employees and the opening of the communications made it actually possible for us to connect even more, even when we are on a very apart setting. And I blurred the pictures and removed the names because I wasn't able to get the permission from everyone. But if you could see, people are even more eager to work. They understand their purpose. They understand the value of keeping the networks up. They understand the value of supporting their teammates. We're able to send out stories of our heroes, our frontliners. There's this one very heartwarming story where there's this engineer from Davao who handles all the inventory. And the other engineer from CDO doesn't have supplies and needs the supplies to be able to deliver the necessary requirement. And there's 5 different borders that they have to cross. No cars could cross the borders because of the lockdown. So we have to utilize all the engineers from different provinces to go to each border, hand over the equipment to the other engineer. The other engineer goes to the other border, hands over the equipment until it reaches CDO. It takes 12 hours. People working on ungodly hours just to deliver service. But because of the empathy that the organization has provided for the employees, because the employees felt that they're taken care of, because the employees knew the value of their work, it didn't matter. What matters is we align to our purpose and we remember how our job connects not just to the organization, but to the overall nationwide building. So I'm inviting you guys, if you're in organizations who try to block questions that are difficult to answer, it's not time to be mum or quiet about these difficult questions. We've encountered questions like, will Globe sponsor my electricity or will Globe clean my house? Obviously, the answer is no. And we have to put it in our FAQs and we have to answer that, no, we're not going to do that, of course. But there are valid questions like, what if I infect my family? And we have to quickly escalate these questions. And having all those support teams in one core group enabled us to answer those questions quickly. If not for the senior leaders who came together to create the COVID-19 response group, empathy at this particular time wouldn't be as effective for Globe. So to empathize properly, we must plan what are the possible questions that we'll be facing and who are the people who have access to information, who can influence the answer to those questions. And how could we make sure that employees are empowered to ask these questions? So you don't have to have your own bot. You don't have to have your own help desk. What you just need are eager employees who are willing to set up, make do with what they have, whether that's the most high-tech of technology or that's just the available free tool online. It doesn't matter. The audience will know if there's empathy and they will know if there's genuine concern. So be thirsty for questions and be willing to clarify, because at these very dark times, the answers to these questions are sometimes the only constant that our employees hold on to. The value that we put forward in the COVID-19 response team is that maybe they're isolated, maybe they're alone, and this is the only thing that's consistent in their lives. We don't need, they don't need another failure. They don't need another point of confusion. They don't need another reason to be angry. So I'll be connecting empathy with digitalization. I've been using the word digitalize, but apparently it's wrong. Digitalization. How do we bring our culture online? And that's to my second point. So our first point is to empathize. And our second point is to digitalize, which is to bring our culture online. But before I will go to digitalize, I just want to check, Evie, if there are questions that...
Here. So I can feel the passion that you're showing us,
Thanks.
Mark, as you went along. This activities that you have embarked on in Globe are really too remarkable, and we have so many comments that went online. But there are also two questions that actually we can provide for this segment, end of this segment. So guys, first segment pa lang to, but we have really learned a lot from Mark already, right? So let me give you a question from Luz Mercurio. How do you measure the success of your key initiatives to ensure engagement in the organization during this difficult period?
Globe in particular is actually oversaturated with data because we have a lot of different sources for measuring engagement. But this case is unprecedented. We're on full work from home mode. There's only a few of us who are going to the office, and a lot of it is through online. So how do we measure engagement? Several ways to measure engagement. And I think the easiest way is to measure how many employees read your content or view your content. So if that's a video, or if that's an email, or if that's a post, there's a way to measure how many views that particular post or that particular email is. Another layer is how long do they stay in the content. If that's a video, you could see if they're watching it for 50% of the time or just 30% of the time. But I think the highest level of engagement really is how you're able to quickly multiply the program that you wanted to do. So for instance, I'll share you later, I think it's in the third section, that when we started featuring employees in our Globe stories, they didn't wait for the next episode. The employees themselves started posting about their own stories of heroism. Whether that's from someone who are working outside, or from someone stretching the hours because the number of requirements has ballooned, especially for the telco organizations. So if you see that the employees are responding, that's the biggest way to measure engagement. So three things. You could measure the views of the things that you put out. You could measure how long they stay there. And you can measure, third is the effectivity. Of course, you could always have a survey to measure it. In our case, we have a work from home survey. How effective is your work from home? But in terms of if we want to measure how effective are the communication that we put out there, we have to think creatively of what are the ways to measure them. And the best way is when the culture that you're trying to put out is multiplied by your employees without requiring them to. And I think that's the best image of engagement, when it's organic to the employees to do such thing.
Okay, it's really really amazing, Mark, for your company, for Globe, to be able to put everything together in such a small small period of time. But there's a question here. There are a lot of questions, but we will reserve them for later during our Q&A. But there's one question that I don't want to be lost later on. Mark, from Christine, she asks, is the Dude bot exclusive for Globe, and can this be shared? by other Ayala brands or companies?
Currently, Dudebot exists in work chat by Facebook. So it's like your
Okay.
um, it's like your Facebook for organizations. But we've already talked. We already talked to the provider of that bot, and we are sharing our content freely to the entire Ayala group and to other subsidiaries of Globe Telecom. And what we're doing now is engaging with our sales team to how to quickly replicate Dude. But if you're worried now, and if you need a quick source of information, there's actually two bots available for public, and this is not company centric. I think I just double check the name. I think it's Spread the Virus. You can access it through your Facebook. So if you're on Facebook now, if you're on Facebook chat or in your messenger, you could just type. Stop the virus. Sorry, not spread. Stop the spread. Stop the
Spread of the virus.
Oh, so Stop the Spread. The name of the bot is Stop the Spread. So you could search for it in your messenger. So and there's another bot created by I think this is from UP. And the name of the bot can be accessed only inside the website endcov.ph. So that's END as in end and COV, which is short for COVID, endcov.ph. So both bots are able to do what Dude is capable of, such as provide information, forward you to hotlines, doctors, mental health support. The only thing that's not there is the company related, which is for accommodations, PPE supplies, etc. But you could report a lot of things there. You could report your health status. You could ask for DOH people to help you, and you could also get information about updates. How many cases do we have, etc. So you could explore those two bots. But if you're not part of the Ayala group, maybe ask questions in the Facebook page, in the live video, and I'll connect you to our sales team. How we can have Dude be available to your organizations.
Okay. So Mark, this is the first segment. This is just the first step, which is to empathize. We can learn a lot more by proceeding with your next step.
Yes.
For engagement.
Thank you, Evie. Our next section is digitalize, and this is just gonna be quick. It's about bringing your culture online. But before I proceed, I want you guys to go to menti.com again. So this is the same website that you used for the first survey. But please take note of the code. There is a new code. It's 141264. So go to menti.com and answer the survey there. You can put in just one tool or one application, or you could answer as many as you want. So the question is what are the tools or the apps that you're using in the time where we're doing full work from home? So I'll be stop sharing this, and I'll go to our Mentimeter and check. Okay, so this is interesting. The biggest answer so far is Zoom, MS Teams, and Viber. Oh, so there's Facebook. There's Gmail. So I'm worried a bit that most of the apps that will come out here are apps that are professional license only or are expensive. So I'm very happy that there's a lot of free apps that are out here, because what I'm about to discuss are culture activities and culture events that you could bring online, and that is using mostly apps. So in our case, we use mostly Zoom for the activities that we bring online, but of course we also use the Google Suite, Google Drive, work chat through Facebook, etc. So there's 220 answers now, so I hope you keep answering. But I'll move to my discussion, and maybe in the comments of the live video, I'll share the final number of each survey. Or digitalize. There are a lot of things that you could bring online, and this is a Zoom setting, which we're able to replicate. Then our training and development team, our Globe University, was able to quickly move their trainings online. And this didn't happen during the lockdown. This happened 2 weeks before the lockdown. Because 2 weeks before the lockdown, we already have policies on no office hopping, which means there's no commingling between offices. We're doing that so that if there's infection, it's only contained in one office and it will not paralyze the entire operation. So it will not spread to the entire globe. So there are already trainings ongoing. And you have to quickly, by tomorrow, there are training attendees who are flying out. We have to tell them, you have to stay in your hotels. It's not safe to go out. Even before the lockdown, it's not safe to go out. Better you stay in your hotels. Better you stay in your organic offices. You can do the training from there. When we roll out that policy, it's the second day of employee onboarding. This is another win for Globe University. There's 4 days of employee onboarding, and we're quite heavy on onboarding because we want to make sure that the culture is inculcated. And during the first day of the onboarding, that's when the announcement happened. So for the second day, there are people from Cebu and Davao. As I mentioned, they have to quickly go to their hotel rooms instead, or in their pads instead. And employees who've attended the first day of training, first day of onboarding, were asked to do the remainder of the onboarding in their own respective offices, logging in on Zoom and attending a virtual training. Of course, it's not limited to onboarding and training. We're also able to bring online our staff meetings. As mentioned, this is our president, Ernest Hu, who has learned the skills of vlogging, how to film himself, because he had to do a lot of reassurance and do a lot and spread clarity in the organization. Our engagement meetings, this in particular slide, this is a kapihan session where employees enjoy coffee while discussing with senior leaders. And as you can see, they are showing their mugs and they're still doing kapihan even on Zoom. Our game nights are quickly moved online. This is a bingo night by our Trinoma store. Our game nights also happened under Kahoot, which is a tool that you can use. Integrate it. You can view it, so you can have quiz nights through Kahoot. And the gym activities are quickly translated to online Zoom gym activities. So we have employees who are thirsty for physical activities. So even without HR interference, they organized their own Zoom channels. There was one which is Zumba called Zumba. So it's very clever. But there's TRX lessons, there's yoga lessons. And then later on, because there are a lot of people who did not have jobs anymore, we have a lot of gym coaches who did not have to go to work because of the lockdown. So these gym coaches, we utilize them. There's already services, they're already giving services to Globe before. When we still have our gym and our office on, we ask them to do online trainings. These are just some of the tools that you could use. But I want to emphasize the free tools that you can use because I know not all organizations are big or has the money to invest to technology, especially in very trying times like this. If you're able to attend the session on Facebook, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, it's the one of the first few sessions. One of the things they've shared there is there's a lot of studies saying that people respond to Facebook Messenger or to chat platforms in general more than they respond to calendar invites to meetings. So it's faster to confirm plans through chat. There are also studies saying that email will be a way of archiving messages to check the minutes of the meetings, but all of the quick decisions will be happening through chat. And if the COVID-19 response team is any indicator, a lot of the decisions there are done through chat because it's very fast and you have to decide quickly, should we deliver this particular number of face masks? Who should be in charge of this particular program? How to respond to this employee who is now experiencing this particular things at this particular time. And it's going to take a lot of time if you use email. Now, I'm not encouraging everyone to move through chat, But what I'm telling you is to examine your culture and you examine what's important to your culture, because it's important that the culture defines you and not the tools. Don't be limited by the tools. Don't limit your culture with the tools that you have. Instead, use your tools to amplify those culture. So I think that's all for digitalize, and I'll move to the last section, which I think is the most important section.
Let's have some questions first, Mark, before we
Yeah,
move
yeah.
on to your third step.
We can take maybe two more questions.
Although for digitizing, there's a question here that you have already answered, but is it okay for us to move step back for the empathizing? There's seemingly some questions here
Okay.
that we would like to share with our attendees. There's a question here from Daryl Sid Samonte. Can you share something of a question from an employee which is somehow improbable for Globe to address during this COVID-19 crisis, yet the associate ended up being fully valued by the company? How was the strategy of the response team in solving such?
An action that was impossible to accomplish.
Um,
I couldn't think of anything now. There are a lot of difficult questions there. Difficult questions that were asked. Questions like, um, how will Globe protect me? And that's a very difficult question to answer because it's very different for different scenarios. And this one was answered by our chief commercial officer. And this is about when we reopen our stores. And this was very inventive. What they wanted to do when we reopened the stores is to have our guards fully protected, but there is a ticketing tool, like in some banks where you get the ticketing number. You don't have to touch the guard. The guard doesn't have to hand out to you. And when you come into the stores, if you've seen videos from Taiwan, the way they do classes, they have plastic surroundings in their tables. So the teacher, even if the teacher is a loud talker, the saliva doesn't go to the students. And the students, when they talk to each other, there's a plastic envelope. And the stores would have that as well. We want to make sure that the employees have that kind of protection. Now, there's a lot of different opinions in terms of science, and Globe has been called overacting by some standards because of the protection that we put in place. But we cannot take that risk. So that particular, I'm not sure if when will that be implemented, but I'm sure it's gonna make some rounds online when we have that dividers inside stores. So that particular idea wasn't imaginable at first, because you always think of stores, you always think so of customer service first. Like there has to be a lot of people interaction and a lot of showing the phone to the customer and a lot of that. But given the changes and the priority now is life and the priority now is health, you have to quickly implement these things and think of inventive ways on how do we go about it. So I think that's one of the questions that I never imagined we'll be able to answer. How do we fully protect our personnel? And it took a lot of creative individuals just throwing ideas to be able to come up with that, and a lot of copying also from inspirations from Taiwan and Singapore and other countries, and putting them together and using the technology that we already have and using plastics which are readily available everywhere. So I think that's the question that seemed improbable at first. How do we protect our store personnel?
Okay, that's a very acceptable question. I hope it satisfies our attendee. This is a very quick one to answer, I guess, Mark, no? Before we move on to your third step. There are actually pretty much a number of good questions here, but let's preserve it to the Q&A later on. This is a quick one. Are infographics of daily reminders enough to be considered an engagement?
Infographics.
It's from Camille Venus.
Yeah, I think the question there is not what is engagement, but the question should be what is engagement that works. There's good infographic,
Yes.
there's bad infographics, and there's a lot. You could just quickly search in Google difference between bad infographics and good infographics. Good infographic could be a good source of engagement, especially if it's reader friendly. You can quickly see the critical content. What is the critical content? You're not distracted by the images. They're not there for the sake of being artful or for being beautiful, but they're there because they're delivering a message. And at the end of the day, people will see and read it and digest it and believe it. Then engagement happens. But we have to take into consideration, and this is something that we've reviewed, we're still reviewing now. There's a tendency when you have so many emails or when you have so many posts that the human mind or the normal absorb so much. So they cannot, there's only a certain limitation on what they can take. So you don't want to bombard them with too many information. So yeah, just be strategic about it. And Evie, I know a lot of questions. The other questions, siguro I'll answer in the live
Yes,
after
yes.
the video. I'll take time
The
and
very
respond to the
interesting
questions.
questions back here. So let's reserve it for later. I can't
Okay.
wait for you to answer them. And also they might get mad at me for not bringing up their questions. But these are really good questions later on. Okay, let's move on to your third step.
Thank you, Evie. The last and probably the most important is positivize. And I just want you to go quickly to Menti and key in that number 9603. So basically the question there is if you could summarize the feelings of your employees or the feelings in your organization, is it? And I will show you the emoticons as the answers are coming in. So this is the Mentimeter emoticons. So what are we saying here? So the first emoticon is googly heart eyes, which means I love the organization. One is happy. The third one with a zipper is quiet, so there's not a lot of communication. The one with the scared face is confused and fearful for their lives. And then the last one is angry. So far, I think most of the participants, their answer is happy. 62, around 62 are happy. Out of 120, 130 now, half of the participants, organizations are happy. And out of 60, so maybe there's around 20% in total of confused and angry. And positivize this particular segment, the last segment, we'll try to address that. How do we move away from angry to happy? How do we move from scared to loving the company? So I'll please keep the answers coming. I'll share the final tally of the answers in the live Facebook page. But I'll go back now to my presentation. So positivize. I think the most important thing is to try to make things lighter for your employees. So we're able to come up with COVID-19 signages, and this is before the lockdown. So in our elevators, we have people doing the tab because we have signages, the best way to cough, and it's and in the CRs, there's a reminder of how to wash your hands. And including in the steps is to start singing. That's step number 1, start singing. Step number 2 is use the soap. And the last step is to finish singing. And there's actually a QR code that when you click on it, there are song suggestions of what other songs have choruses as long as Happy Birthday. There are work from home reminders where we use humor instead of just reminding employee, you have to work, you're not on vacation or work from home. Instead of laying down the agreements in such an authoritative or commanding way, we made use of humor. So in this particular slide, I want you to look at the second panel. and I'll be translating this to to those who do not speak Filipino language. The bed is saying, "Why are you leaving me? Aren't we supposed to have a bonding session?" And then the person who's running away from the bed is saying, "Leave me alone. Why are you talking? You're a bed." Aside from making sure that things are lighter through communications, we need to make sure also that a lot of the services that we have for wellness are still existing. So these are some of the wellness webinars that we have. Two of them have already happened, and there's one. I think this is today. Yeah, there's one today at the same time that I'm doing this webinar. And there's a lot of people who are willing to share their experiences, their stories. Professionals are willing to do it. Sometimes for a minimal fee, sometimes for free, sometimes just donate to the charity of choice. And if you don't have the budget for wellness talks, you could just go online. There's a lot of wellness talks there's a lot of wellness talks available through YouTube or through Facebook, which you could use. You just need to filter through and look for content which are applicable to you. So in our case, we wanted to impart to our employees how to practice mindfulness, how to manage their anxiety, and how to prioritize their well-being. As mentioned earlier, a lot of people started doing their Zoom classes online. So we're also able to invite some of our gym coaches, since they used to work for Globe in our gym, in internal gym inside the office. Now we're still getting them for the online Zoom classes. So we're calling it WOWAL, or Workout Now. And we created the Good Vibes Club. So this is from an employee programs group. So remember in the offices you have kwentuhan time? Like when you're walking towards the pantry, or you're having your lunch, or you're having your quick Yossi, or Yossi is bad. You're having a quick coffee break, not Yossi. We have arranged podcast sessions for them. So these are employee volunteers for doing podcasts, lunchbox sessions during lunchtime, and there's the good times session naman. This is after office hours. These are just some of the topics that we have. So for lunchbox sessions, we've invited our partner to talk about mental health. And there's also a cooking session with our dietitian. And we're inviting more employees to talk. And there's one who would like to share gardening tips. There's one who wanted to share how to bond with your children, how to do proper homeschooling while school is suspended. We also have the good times, where we just basically what it implies, we just have a good time. So we have people sending in questions and people just answering back it. There's a jam night session where you could join in and sing with the best singers in Globe. And there's a movie night session. And most importantly, the true light that's happening, we need to amplify them. These are some of the photos of our frontliners who are still doing their job when everyone else is the safety of their own homes. To quote one employee, he said, we keep people at home by keeping the network up. This is our way of rebuilding the nation and helping the nation heal. That's why when we have to quickly provide food for them, we have to mobilize our fleet team. We have to mobilize our employee services team. We have to mobilize a lot of people to support our frontliners. It wasn't like asking for work or asking for help, because there was a clear message of what needs to be done, not just for yourself, but for the country. And this quickly multiplied into a lot of employees sending messages to frontliners. And this is just one example of people who are in their Zoom meetings, taking pictures of them, saying thank you to their Globe teammates who are out there and doing the work for them. And I think the most important thing when you positivize something is you forget about sugarcoating. It's not about sugarcoating. It's not about putting a positive spin on it. But it's about finding light at our most darkest times, because there's a lot of good stories that we could share. There's a lot of inspiring stories If you just listen, you will find them. Globe was very big on moving as one. That was the mantra for the last couple of years. But if you're not able to quickly get support from different teams and mobilize and make sure that employees understand that we're ready to listen, address those questions, quickly move things digitally, and ensure that people see the light even at the very dark times, we will not be able to move as one. And moving as one doesn't stop us. The physical barriers doesn't stop us. Even when it's online, people are still moving as one. So I think that's my entire talk on how do we manage employee experience in times of COVID-19. But if we have time, I think we can still entertain some questions. And those questions that we'll not be able to answer, I'll answer it through Facebook Live.
Okay. So you're done, Mark, with your
Yes.
presentation. Okay. So let's move on to some questions here. There's so many, but let's try to put everything in for the next 6 or 7 minutes or so, right? Okay. And there are several questions here. I have 2 questions here that are really related, coming from Maribel and an anonymous attendee. Maribel's questions is all about, these are all about all your amazing engagement activities. Maribel's question is, what were the engagement activities pre-COVID-19? And the anonymous attendee asked naman, what will be your post-COVID employee engagement activities?
Those are second one was a difficult question because we haven't fully planned for that yet. But I'll try to wing it. I answer the first question first and buy time. Before COVID-19, or before the lockdown, there's already a lot of COVID programs happening. So as early as January, there are already reminders on safety. So in terms of communication, the employees weren't shocked that we are suddenly talking about COVID and we're suddenly talking about safety and hygiene, etc., because we're able to ease them in. And I think that's one thing that one of the things about communication in Globe is that we're able to talk about things that can happen, but nobody questioned us. Aren't you promoting panic by talking about COVID in January? But instead, the question was, how can we phrase it better so we don't cause panic, and instead we make sure that employees are informed? A lot of the engagement programs that are happening now, we have a nutritionist inside the office. We have a gym and some coaches there as well. We have mental health professionals who are reachable through Zoom meetings and through calls, and of course the clinics that are functional. So all of these employee support activities are still happening before and after ECQ. Now for the non-support but fun engagement activities, there are a lot of activities that were canceled. There's supposedly like a Sigaw Ayala competition within the Ayala group, and we've been practicing for it for the last, I think, 6 months to 1 year. Some teams have been practicing for 1 year, but have to quickly stop it. And the good thing is when you have these engagement activities happening, they organize their own. That's why they're the first to build their own Zoom physical activities. Aside from that, there's also a lot of interest clubs that are existing. So you have a music club, we're able to transition that as well. Our choir, I think they recently published in one of the newspapers for one of their videos. So they're creating music videos now. The choir will transition them from live performance to editing music videos. There are interest clubs. What else? We have art clubs who are sponsoring art competitions for families. And we're putting it out, I think, in the next couple of weeks. So we're asking parents and kids to do collaborative art together, and with the goal of featuring it when you go back to Globe in our Globe gallery. But for now, having the exhibit online. So I think most of the engagement activities were existing both before and after, before and during. Now, as to what engagement activities will exist after, um, we haven't really fully decided yet on how we're going to quickly transition. So that's still up up for grabs. But I think the resounding philosophy there is engagement shouldn't stop, communication shouldn't stop, employee recognition shouldn't stop, employee experience should stay top notch, and I think with the right people in place and the right group and the right leader, it doesn't matter what the situation is. You could quickly adapt your culture. It will just change to some form, maybe through a tool now instead of a face-to-face conversation. But the culture will always be there. So yun. I hope I was able to answer the question, but I'll be there in the online video to answer.
Hello. I think you did, Mark, because some of the other questions here you were able to answer based on those things that you mentioned.
Thank you.
Okay, there's another one. This one is from an anonymous attendee. It was written in a general manner. It actually relates to the buy-in, but let's put it in the globe experience. So how did you convince your leaders to be able to communicate openly and increase employee engagement? How were you able to really take this off the ground?
I wish I could claim that victory. That convince them. I didn't. There was overpowering sense of urgency that we have to be very clear, and we have to make our employees feel that they're taken care of. And this is from top down. Of course, that hasn't been always the case. In early January, people are not so afraid about COVID. So the opinions there during that time are differing. But by March, I think by late February, we've decided to cancel all visitors in the building. No more visitors, or all meetings should be online. Mid-February, before that, we started monitoring all visitors. All visitors should declare countries that they've visited. All employees should go to quarantine if they visited Taiwan, etc., China, etc. And all those policies have nuances, especially for people who are in the sales department or in the legal department. And it wasn't easy coming up with a decision very quickly. But I think the key to it is really listening. Just to share one question from our sales team. Sabi niya, paano yung KPI natin? Paano yung benta ko? Paano yung kita ng Globe? Sorry, I'll be translating to English for the others. How about my targets, my sales targets? How about my clients? If I don't sell, then Globe will have no business. And that's a very valid question. That's not a selfish question. The salesperson is also thinking about the revenue of Globe. And I think our chief HR officer and our chief risk officer has the same answer, is if something happens to you, that's a bigger problem. So we're able to gather all these questions on what's the impact of these very stringent policies. Not allowed, you're not allowed to go out on meetings. We filter your visitors. Imagine how bad that may look like to a CEO. You ask the CEO, please fill out your travel history before you can go to our office. Or before I meet you face to face, I need to learn about your travel history. And there's a lot of work and there's a lot of confusion at first. But I think that the emoticons journey that I showed, some employees, of course, are angry at first. Why are you stopping me from doing my job? I just want to do my job. I just want to attend to my meetings. I just want to meet my clients. I just want to be able to help Globe achieve its targets. And from angry, we're able to transition them to understanding and happy. And I think alignment has a lot to do with it, making sure that employees understand the management understand employees, and the availability of a help desk and at the same time, I think the videos,
Okay. Okay,
the
Mark.
live
We're
webinars.
actually, hello, Mark.
Yeah, we're over
Thank you.
time.
I know you still want to say, satisfy to answer the questions. You wouldn't believe it. There are 17 questions at hand and so many comments in our chat box. However, we cannot answer all of these. What we can do, Mark, is it okay if we can compile all these questions and have have you write an article that would somehow
Yeah, sure.
provide the answers to a lot of queries. I think this session, they're really hungry for more, but we cannot do an overtime. So we want to thank you, Mark, for having indulged and provided us your very precious time, your 1 hour's time, to be with our community of learners. And I want to thank everybody here, almost 500 viewers, attendees to these sessions. Thank you very much in behalf of PSTV. We want to thank you, and we'd like to see you tomorrow for another learning session and engagement with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, John.
Thank
And
you.
thank
Thank you for
you,
having me.
Nat. Yes. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks. Goodbye, everyone.